What's up, y'all? Henry Higuita here with episode 3 of Across the Pitch. Atlanta United got its first taste of defeat in 2025 after a 2-0 loss at rival Charlotte FC. And things aren't getting much easier anytime soon. For match day 3, the Five Stripes return home to Mercedes-Benz Stadium to host the 2024 MLS Cup runner-up, New York Red Bulls, on Saturday, March 8th. And here to discuss the match with me is Bob Ventamiglia of the Designated Pundits podcast. Bob, how you doing, man?
Great, thank you. I'm really happy to be here. Talk some Red Bull. Atlanta United. I have a very love-hate relationship with this team. Mostly hate. If you asked me a few years ago, I'd say Atlanta was the biggest rival of Red Bull. Goes back to 2018 conference finals. That was the year. That was the Supporter Shield year. That was the year we were supposed to win MLS Cup. And, first leg heading into Atlanta, I still see that Joseph Martinez, 15 minutes in, scoring a goal, like in the back of my head, just not the way things were supposed to go. But growing up in the New York City area, I am an Atlanta Braves fan. So it's kind of both, one half on, the other. All those old Braves fans are all SEC guys and now Atlanta United fans, but it's a very conflicting feeling there.
Hey, we'll take it with the Braves, man. Absolutely. And you just brought it up, but I want to take a trip down memory lane for a sec, because this matchup,
Can we
we're going to do it.
Sure.
This matchup, it has a lot of history. For starters, Red Bulls were Atlanta United's very first MLS opponent back March 5th, 2017, almost to the day, basically. We're at that today. And it was Atlanta United's first loss. And then on decision day in 2018, Atlanta United is leading the Shield race. All they have to do is beat Toronto, and they don't get it done. And Red Bulls comes in, swipes in, takes that Shield from them. And then they meet again, same year, at the conference final, and Atlanta finally does succeed, beats Red Bulls, goes on to win MLS Cup. And you just went into it a little bit, but how would you characterize this matchup over the years?
Yeah, it's not really a matchup. It's been complete domination by Red Bull, except for the one game that actually mattered. And I think that is, part of the pain. Historically, Red Bull is, and I had it because I picked this for my article that I release on sports betting each week. Red Bulls are 10 wins, 5 draws, and 2 losses. The 2 losses were one last season. I think it was a 1-0 loss. And then 2018 in that playoff game. Like, those are the 2 times we've ever lost to Atlanta. So it has been complete domination except for when it matters. And I think that I would trade all 10 of those wins and all 5 of those draws to change just the one match that we needed to win there in Atlanta in that first leg. So yeah, it's, again, I talked to Steve Cangelosi, who's an MLS guy with Apple and was with MSG Network, which aired Red Bull games for years and years. He was the commentator there. And, he agrees. He's like, the number one rival for Red Bull is not New York. It's not some manufactured team that bought in with, oil money. It is Atlanta United. It was, originally there. And I remember, heckling Joseph Martinez and doing all that stuff. Remember that picture with like the rose in his mouth that he hates so much, talking about even putting that on tifos when Atlanta was coming our way. It's fun, it's organic, and it's not some forced geographical rivalry. I think that most fans that maybe have a shorter attention span, that maybe don't have the Italian grudge that I run, may have forgotten about it now, and they may remember either earlier days against DC United as being more of a rivalry, or now NYCFC. But I think that is one of the original organic rivalries, certainly for your club, and it's one that's in the back of my head that I think about quite often.
It's funny that you bring up organic rivalries, because with Atlanta, that's kind of been a thing over the past few years. When you have these clubs like Charlotte and Nashville starting to pop up, and it's like, oh yeah, the Southeastern rivals. And honestly, if you ask Atlanta United fans, they're just like, these aren't really teams that we feel are rivals. Yeah, there's a whole like banter with Charlotte and Nashville and whatever, but really, if you ask an Atlanta United fan, I find that most of the time you ask them who are Atlanta United's biggest rivals. Number one is Orlando. Number
Yeah,
two,
that is what I associate to. Yeah, because you guys, I mean, so much when you guys came in the league. Yeah.
yeah, and because those were the two original Southeastern clubs, and also the supporters have no love for each other. I could tell you that much. There are stories of the first few Atlanta United Orlando games. Things got ugly. But then number two is Red Bulls, and because of what you said, because of that kind of, Atlanta and Red Bulls have met in some of the most important games, and also the fact that it's kind of something that Atlanta United, they're trying to beat Red Bulls more, and I think when we go back to last season, you mentioned it, Atlanta did get an important win against Red Bulls. It was a 2-1, I believe it was 2-1, second to last game of the season, and it was important for Atlanta to have a chance on decision day. So speaking of 2024, let's talk about Red Bulls 2024. Y'all finished 7th in the Eastern Conference, and y'all were up against it in the playoffs from the very beginning. You were against Columbus, but then y'all won one game, and then y'all won the second game in penalties. And then, okay, you're through to the next round against NYCFC or your New York rivals. And then you beat them, and you're into the conference final. And then you beat Orlando. By the way, huge thank you from Atlanta United fans for that. We were rooting for y'all. Y'all beat Orlando, and you're into MLS Cup. Like, that run, like, how spectacular. What was the feels? What were you feeling when that run was going on?
Well, so it was a very opportune time to get hot. There were a couple of things that happened at the same time that I think led to our success. The first is Emil Forsberg getting healthy. Now, I talk about Emil Forsberg just about every week, and people are tired of hearing about it, but you're going to hear about it again because I haven't been on this show talking about him. I mean, this is a guy who's scored and won in Champions League, a guy who scored in the World Cup, a guy who's played and scored in some of the biggest, the Euros in every competition. He's done it. And he is, a consummate pro. People like to talk about Evander because he's new. People like to talk about Lucho Acosta because he's flashy. Forsberg needs to be thought of as a top number 10 in this league amongst with those guys without any hesitation. He is that good. He is that experienced. And we saw it. If he was on the field every game for Red Bull, we could assume, just based on the games that he had played, that we would have been tied for second with the Columbus Crew. But instead, we were not. We went through a 20-game streak with 2 wins in the middle of the season. It was awful how hot and cold the team was, and it was all on the back of Emil Forsberg. Then, with our new coach, Sandro Schwartz, who I've talked to many times, fantastic coach, someone who's really well-liked amongst Red Bull, but he's also a younger coach. He's experimenting. He's trying new things, and they kind of had an idea heading into the playoffs. Hey, let's move from a 4-man back line, because we got these guys like John Tolkien who like to get upfield, like, Cam Harper who can play right back and get upfield. We have 3 center backs. Let's roll with that and see what happens. And that tactical flexibility, that change to a 5-man back line is really what propelled Red Bull through the playoffs. And they gave up 2 goals to the Columbus Crew, tied at home, and went on to win. But other than that, Columbus Crew, the first game, 0 goals. NYCFC, 0 goals. Orlando, 0 goals. We didn't have the prolific offense, but we didn't need it because we were so tactically sound in the back. This is a high pressing system, and that high press took a bit of a change last year, where in the past, maybe you would have just seen guys running at other guys full speed all the time, into now choosing, okay, you can pass that. We'll leave that passing lane open for you, but we're going to shut the other one. We're going to wait for, a really good opportunity. So, we have older guys now, Emil Forsberg, Choupo-Moting, that don't need to run the entire game, but choose your spots wisely. And I haven't even put my finger on exactly what triggers the press at certain times, but you'll see that it is more mature, and it's more out of a place of tactics than a place of just energy drink ball run that you might have seen in years past.
Yeah, certainly a little bit of a different Red Bulls under Sandro Schwartz, but you got to say a better one if y'all made it to MLS Cup. Let's talk about some of the work that the Red Bulls have been doing over the winter. We got some transfer business. First of all, the big eye-catching signing that I see here, Eric Maxim Choupo-Moting, a forward with experience in some of the biggest teams in Europe, 38 goals with Bayern Munich, 9 goals with PSG. What are you guys expecting from him, and how has he looked in these first 2 games?
I expect him to score goals. That's what you brought in for. You're up top of the field, and that is what we needed more than anything else. It's also experience. This is a team that relies on development a lot, and I think 2 years ago when we looked at the squad, there was one player over the age of 25 on the starting roster. They were good. But they didn't have the experience, the know-how to do everything they needed to do. So Choupo-Moting adds some experience. He adds the ability to score goals, to come up in situations. He adds size, right? We had young players like Dante Van Zier who left the team, and he was just a small guy, and he was getting thrown around up top without anyone, clearing out the center for him. Choupo-Moting is 6'3". That's going to be, a big target. And I almost envy DC United, because as bad as they are at certain points, they can get to a point in the game and just say, okay, let's just throw the ball up in the center and let someone come down with it. And when Red Bull have been frustrated in the past, they haven't had that. It's like, what do we do? Oh, just pass the ball around. Maybe something will open up next time. And you see how frustrating that gets when you just can't score and there's no answer in sight. So he doesn't bring a ton of speed, although he's looked quick in a few matches this season. He's expected to go up the top and get goals. And if not, clear out the way. He's going to keep defenses honest. You have to put a center back, maybe 2 on him at all times. And that, I think, is going to leave space for Emil Forsberg. We saw that in the last game. We saw him hit a post, and Mohamed Sofo, who was not a projected starter by any means, just ran at the net and put it in the back of the net. So he brings a lot experience. We got guys like Julian Hall, who are going to be, a big deal in this league, I believe. He's also 16 years old. Well, now you have a player who can help mentor the young guys. So I think while at a DP price tag, people were maybe, shooing this off as not a great signing, a retirement league kind of guy, I think that he adds more than just his feet on the pitch.
Yeah, and the goals are going to be important from him. If he can use that experience from Europe, that would be huge for the Red Bulls. I want to look at the other column now, an offseason with several key outgoings. First of all, you mentioned it, DP forward Dante Van Zier transferred to Ghent. John Tolkien sent to Holstein Kiel, and Andres Reyes is over with the new guys in San Diego, among others. Is the amount of turnover on this roster between last season, a season where you made MLS Cup, to this season, is that a concern?
No, not even a little bit. And in fact, out of that, the only player I take as a net loss is going to be John Tolkien. Ryan Mira, of course, backup goalkeepers never get the love they deserve, but someone who had been an Open Cup legend for this team for a long time. And he had a really bad hip injury when he was younger. He was going to be the next starting goalie. We had to go out and find a guy. We pulled in Robles, as luck would have it. Ryan Mira never really saw a starting spot again, but he was the longest tenured Red Bull in the last hangover from those Supporter Shield winning seasons. So he's, really invaluable to the club. I'm sure he'll still be knocking around somewhere. But yeah, John Tolkien obviously brings a lot from the left back position. I think if we had the 5-man backline that we employed in the playoffs throughout an earlier part of Tolkien's career, he might have made that jump to Europe even sooner, because he's not a flat out defensive left back. I mean, he gets up the field as a true wing back type player. So I really would have liked to maybe have seen him in that another season, but his time has certainly been called, and he deserved that every step of the way. And the other guy, big guy, Andre Reyes, that's a net positive for me too. He was a fantastic player, always a liability, always a walking red card, always someone who is just a little poke away from going off and doing something silly. I don't know what happened. The story is still all unconfirmed from MLS Cup, but he was on the starting roster. He was set to play. He went out for warmups, could not compete at that point. They said there was an illness. I've heard everything from illness, flu, stomach thing. You can think maybe like a case of the yips, or an actual, type of illness. We don't know what it was, but it was a very strange timing. There was a lot of suspect around that. He was not in. His replacement is a young man we'll talk about later by the name of Noah Isla, who's a fantastic center back, real big guy, 6'4", 19 years old, something like that. I'd have to look up. He's a very young developmental player, but he had been nursing an injury and hadn't started. So they picked on that. Galaxy got 2 early goals. And I wouldn't blame the loss completely on Andre Reyes, but I do think his availability would have changed what we'd seen in that match overall. So he took the plane back with the team after the loss and was never seen from again. He was transferred out immediately after that situation, which makes me think maybe there was something that Red Bull saw in his performance that led him to be sent away. In his replacement, we have Alexander Hack, also from Germany, who I think is a net positive for the team. Also, an older, more experienced player, one who's looked fantastic. He scored 2 goals in preseason. Again, size, 6'4", someone, is a big target in the box. 2 set piece goals, headers off of corners in preseason, and he's looked every bit the part so far in this Major League Soccer season. So, I like to wish John Tolkien well, but everything else here is just about a net positive. I like the players we're bringing in. I'm more confident in this team now than I was at this point last year.
Now, before we move on, is there any of these players, any other players that you want to say anything else about, anyone here on this list?
Yeah, I'm going to go with Omar Valencia. He was in the mix with Raheem Edwards, a player that we've known from Major League Soccer for some time. I love Raheem Edwards in a 5-man back line, playing as a wing with a little less defensive duties. Edwards and Valencia, along with Marcelo Morales, were all 3 new guys that were brought in to fill in the shoes of John Tolkien. And I think they all bring something a little bit different depending on what we're going to need tactically in that situation. But yeah, just those 3 guys I think are going to be fantastic. Omar Valencia has already been taking corner kicks and doing, duties there for the squad. He's played 160 minutes so far with 1 assist. And, there's a lot to be really happy about. We can go over some young guys here too. Tim Parker, it's another one. His ideal number of minutes this season is 0. We do not want to see him step on the field, but his presence there, knowing that he's a player we can go to if there's an injury in the back line, that he has MLS experience, we know exactly what he's good at, exactly what his strengths are. I think that is also a positive to the team since we're not paying him very much money. I think that is a huge amount of value for just a little price.
Sweet. Now let's jump into the season. Red Bulls began their 2025 season with a 1-0 road loss to FC Cincinnati before going home to dismantle Nashville SC 2-0. Mohamed Sofo and Emil Forsberg with the goals in that game. What do you think of those first 2 games?
You have to be happy with the results, right? Going into FC Cincinnati, you would have liked to have seen a goal scored, but they signed Dinky and had a great assist from Yedlin on that play. There's no shame in dropping points to FC Cincinnati when you're on the road. And I think that, that's kind of like a loss is expected. You hope for a tie. And if you can leave with some points, that is going to be, a net positive. I don't think in a home opener for Cincinnati with the amount of money they spent this offseason, a win was ever really quite there. But Red Bull did have quite a few opportunities against a very good defensive squad. And then, they took it home. They took it to Nashville. The score was 2-0. Could have been 4-0, 5-0. They just had constant pressure, a lot of the ball, went up too early, and Nashville had no ideas. They had one big opportunity, and that's it. The door was closed. So that's what we like to see, right? You want to see goals, but you want to see your team be able to take a lead and for 45 minutes put it to bed. So that's exactly what we saw in that second game against Nashville. Nashville might be a tough opponent. I don't necessarily like their squad, but there's no doubt that they have a lot of talent. Surridge and Mukhtar, while they maybe haven't put it together for a full season yet, certainly look threatening. They did not look threatening in this matchup. At home, Red Bull is going to be a force again this season, something we've seen in the past, and they can be very scary when they do that. I think that is going to be the goal. Schwartz, we do know he's a little bit of a European, like win at home, draw on the road kind of guy. So it's going to be like a bend, don't break kind of thing when we're there. And if you can turn the ball around quickly, pressure at an important time, maybe cause an error out the back, now you can, look at a road win. But I don't think that was necessarily the thought heading into Cincinnati, like, oh, let's go punch them in the face and press hard early and go up. It was, hey, let's, see if we can use a couple of advantages here or there, maybe break away, find an opportunity and put a ball in the back of the net. Unfortunately, that didn't happen, but 1 win, 1 loss in 2 matches, that's a nice start. And I think that that's about as good as you could have asked for, looking at the difficulty of the first few weeks, heading into Atlanta and then hosting Orlando, a couple easy games after that. But this is a rough early stretch for Red Bull. It's a team. There are a lot of new pieces, and it's hard to put them together. So I am happy with the start so far.
Yeah, rough start to, I guess, the opponents that you're facing, but a decent start for the Red Bulls. Now let's jump into the game against Atlanta. Here is the predicted 11. Walk me through it a little bit. Who are some of the key players we got to watch out for?
So the first thing I have to say here is on the right wing position, we don't know who's playing there. Harper's out. He sustained an injury. It looked really bad, but apparently it might not be as bad. He might just be out a couple of weeks to a couple months, which would be a big loss because he has been fantastic on right wing. In fact, again, I said again, if we were doing this 5-man back line thing with him and Tolkien, we would have had a lot of different results over the past 2 seasons. Cameron Harper has come from, Red Bull too. He has, been that guy, and just watching him progress each and every season has been fantastic. There is no like for like replacement. His sub on my unofficial depth chart would be Kyle Duncan, who will also be missing for this match. I plugged in Dylan Nealis. It could be Peter Stroud moving over, or even Daniel Edelman playing in that position. There's no like for like right wing right now. Dylan Nealis is a very good, solid player. He was a midfielder and a right back, but I think he's more of a defensive type player. I don't see him being the type of shuttler that Cam Harper was over the first course of the season. So, I take that right away. Otherwise, this is really similar to what we intended to go out with. Mohamed Sofo up there is another very young player for the team. He's replacing Lewis Morgan, who's also on a little bit of a knock there, and he looks to be unavailable. So that is a plug in there too. But in his first Major League Soccer start, he did get a goal. He's a good athlete, a good runner at the ball. Again, Choupo-Moting hit a post on taking a quite a great shot, and everyone just stood flat-footed except Sofo. He ran right at the net. It's one of those things like, okay, it went off the post. I'm not off sides. Like, that doesn't count as a pass. So get in behind the defense and put it in the back of the net. That's exactly the kind of instincts that we look for. That's what the Red Bull Academy kind of teaches these young guys. So it's not surprising to me at all, but that is potentially 2 areas of weakness, both on the right side of the field. On the left side of the field, you see Omar Valencia, who I talked about a little bit earlier, who's been fantastic bringing the ball up and down the pitch. Emil Forsberg, we think of him as a 10, and he is a 10, but he pushes out left a lot, and he spent a lot of time out there. If you look at his heat maps from last match, that I think is going to be the biggest problem for Atlanta United if we talk about like 1-for-1 matchups. I have you guys with Brooks Lennon out, and if Matt Edwards is there on Emil Forsberg, that is a problem. That is a problem in your depth chart there. We saw last week who was on him. It was Nashville, Andy Nahar, who's a consummate MLS pro, one of the best right backs in the league, was on him, just not close enough. And I mean, he closed down super, super fast. Emil Forsberg, just a little faint left, released the ball right, curling up into the back of the net. That is not a scrub defender, and Emil Forsberg played him like a fiddle. I think that Edwards is going to be in for a long match if that is the way that they're going to go, trying to match him up there. We talked about Eric Choupo-Moting. We still are looking for him to get his first Major League Soccer goal. For me, the big matchup is going to be the big guys, right? Latte Lath is a big center forward. He's going to win a lot of aerial duels. We got guys in the back, Hack, Nealis, and Isla. Now, Isla is more of a modern center back. He's a great distributor of the ball. He's the guy who's going to be, if Atlanta's jumping too far upfield or playing too high of a line, he's going to be splitting them to just sending balls downfield, accurate long balls, and doing that down the field. While Sean Nealis and Hack are more traditional center backs, Sean Nealis perennially is top of the league in aerials won, aerial duels, aerial duel percentage. He's one of the best guys in the air, one of the best set piece defenders in the league. And now you add Alexander Hack, who's 6'4". So you got 3 huge guys along the back line there. No one under 6'2" plays defense on this Red Bull team. And now you add Choupo-Moting up top. it's just really exciting. I think that is going to be the story of the match, is both Emil against Matt Edwards and then height against height. Is Latte Lath going to be able to rise, pun intended, to the occasion here? Or is it going to be Red Bulls, just playing solid defense, keeping it out of the box, and maybe looking for a set piece of their own? So a lot of storylines here. Of course, Stroud and Edelman, we haven't even talked about yet. Just two solid center backs. I don't like when they're on highlight reels because I don't think that's what they're meant to do on this squad. But when you look at, guys who are going to pass the ball 30 times and be accurate 29 of them, those are two guys you got to look at. Two very, very important cogs on this team. So, overall, I think that this is a really good looking squad. There's a lot of places to develop. There's a lot of roles yet to be won. And, I think it's going to be a really great matchup.
Yeah, there's like you said, plenty of matchups to look forward to. Latte Lat, not the tallest guy. He's 5'11".
He plays big though. I mean,
but he can jump. He's got hops on him. And then, Matt Edwards. Look, last week he matched up against Wilfred Zaha, and at the beginning it was not that terrible, and then came the goals where he was just outmatched a little bit on both of them. But we'll see how he does against Forsberg. He's almost certainly going to be the guy at right back for Atlanta, with Hernandez and Lennon both out. I wanted to talk about Emil Forsberg a little bit more. You said you like talking about him. He is the captain in his second season in MLS, already has a goal in 2025, and it was a banger also. Yeah. Last season, racked up 12 goals and 3 assists in 26 games. What are the expectations for him this year?
To not go to Sweden and come back hurt. That would be a huge addition to this squad. And just to kind of build on what he had. I mean, it's hard when you have an injury and you lose a lot of those formative moments with your team, that link-up play. He also had terrible, terrible forward play all of last season. That is what plagued this team on and off. We talked about Van Zier already just being a net negative to this squad. Came in his time, and it's a very, very difficult place when you're coming from Belgium overseas to the United States, and you have to settle in really quickly. Now you have all this travel when maybe you didn't before. Belgium is a very, very small country. And he never really quite fit in. He got a big suspension for making what was deemed racist comments in a matchup. I believe it was against San Jose at the time. I know it was, it was San Jose. He had a big suspension, had a team suspension, came back and just never quite put it together. Had an excellent postseason, but that is not the results we would have seen throughout the regular year. Like if you only saw Red Bull during the playoffs, that is not a really good picture of what was done. And you had Elias Manuel, who was, I can't say enough bad things about him. Not a player I think should be in Major League Soccer. He's not good. And it looks like he's kind of signing his own check out of the league there, signed with RSL and then never showed up. So yeah, very hard to see what's going on there. But this is a player who had absolutely no progress, no character development over his 3 seasons up top in Red Bull, just missing every opportunity, skying sitters time and time again. We want to talk about like an XG guy, someone who would take the simplest tap in and put it into the 15th row. So, I was really disgusted, quite honestly, looking at the forward play. Van Zier brought it together in the playoffs last year. I wish him well, but I also recognize that what he was doing for the 34 games of the regular season was nowhere near enough for a DP contract.
All right, now we have a couple questions from some of the folks in our Discord. A question from Andrew Clark, specifically for young talent. Who should we be keeping an eye on this season?
How long do you got? Let's go. Let me start with guys that you're going to see in this match most likely. I do have Mohamed Sofo as the projected starter. Again, we've seen extraordinarily little. He's not even the guy we thought was going to be plugging in there. We thought it would be someone like Julian Hall, who is more been kept as that 80th minute sub for Choupo-Moting. Sofo, again, played 1 game, scored in his first goal. That's about the tape we have, unless you're watching, Red Bull 2 week in and week out. I think he had very good instincts on that play just to see, hey, look, there's 4 defenders flat-footed right now. The ball's onside, so I might as well run for it. You can't teach that. That's like a game IQ thing, so I think he checks that box. not sure what else he has. I couldn't tell you. If he stinks this game up, I wouldn't be surprised. If he scores 2 goals, I wouldn't be shocked either. I did speak earlier about Julian Hall. Julian Hall was so young last season that it was against New Jersey law for him to start in some games because people under the age of 16 cannot work after 7:30 p.m. So he had limited minutes, but the Red Bull is playing him every chance they get. Every time they need a sub at the end of the game, up top, someone to run at the net. He's gotten those minutes. He scored before, had a great preseason. So I think Julian Hall and Mohamed Sofo are 2 names you need to know. And then out, in defense, Omar Valencia, who I talked about a little bit more. He's kind of plugging in for John Tolkien, left back, taking corner kicks, getting up the field, doing all that great stuff. And Noah Ella, who we saw almost all of last season, a huge guy in the back line. You can't teach size. He's got that. He's got age. He's got elite distribution from the back. And I think that is something that's completely invaluable to this team. And if you want to go one more that you may or may not see, Ronald Donkor, he may be out with an injury. We're not sure. He's a midfielder on the defensive side. Very good at pressing, closing down on the ball, looked really good in the limited minutes we saw of him last year.
So now we get to arguably the most important part of the show, the score predictions. Now, y'all guests on this show, you and our friends from Montreal and Charlotte are off to a very strong start. Y'all are in first. You got to keep the streak going, Bob. So the question is, how do you think this game ends?
So I run the MLS prediction show, and we do sportsbook picks. That's kind of my wheelhouse, doing the betting, talking about that. So I found a realistic bet. It's a little complicated, but you got to follow me on this. It's Red Bull or draw. So a Red Bull win or tie, and over 1.5 goals. So as long as Red Bull wins or draws, and it's not 1-0 in Red Bull's favor, that's even money. So that's plus 105, just about even money. You get a little bit extra return back on that. That's what I'm thinking is going to happen. I think that this is likely 1-1. I like that number. That just keeps coming in the back of my head. If Red Bull can take a nice opportune, bad pass out the back, maybe catching someone flat-footed. I did speak a little bit about Brad Guzan, who was fantastic through the playoffs, but not excellent so far early this year. There was the one play he parried the ball like 15 yards where maybe a younger Brad Guzan might have caught it or, put it down towards his own feet. So if there are mistakes like that, maybe Abram makes a bad pass backwards, we jump on it, maybe a 2-1 result for Red Bull. But I'm really liking the 1-1 draw. If you ask me for an official prediction, like an official scoreline, that's what I would say. But my pick is Red Bull or draw and over 1.5 goals scored.
Okay, so just for the record, we're going with the 1-1 draw if you had to choose one.
Sure. Yeah.
Awesome.
Sign me up.
You got it, man. All right, Bob, any final thoughts before we get out of here?
It's going to be a lot of fun. This has been a fantastic season so far. I think Atlanta is it's a good time to play Atlanta right now if you're Red Bull, right? This defense is not what they signed up for. And I think if we can shut down Latte Lath, Almiron, that connection there, and, just create enough havoc in the midfield, maybe close down on some of these guys on some good plays, get some good pressure, catch an opportunity or two. I think it's a really good time for this Red Bull squad to face Atlanta. I think there's a slight bit of a mismatch, which we've seen historically. We've seen the mismatch, 10 wins, 5 draws, and 2 losses, although Atlanta did win their first ever series against Red Bull last year with a win and a draw. So I think we're in for a great game. I'll be really interested in watching. I'm invested. I want to see what Atlanta does. I really like a lot of the moves you've made this season, but I want to see how Sabah fits in with the squad. I want to see if Moranchuk can make that next step and really, live up to his price tag. He's with the big boys now. If he can't do it with Latte Lath and Almiron, you're going to have a short MLS career like that. So there's so many things to watch. I'm glad that we're playing each other because this is a team I wanted to watch anyway. And now I don't need to watch 2 separate matches to catch Atlanta and Red Bull one time. I think that's at 7:30 in the afternoon. It's going to be great.
7:30 in the PM. Where can people find you, Bob?
You can find us on thedesignatedpundits.com, youtube.com/ at The Designated Pundits. Just go to our main website. There are links there, every major podcast platform. You can find me at Bob V Soccer on all social media. You can do the Twitter thing. I prefer Blue Sky. If you have any questions or anything, just hop in that inbox and I'd love to help you out.
Atlanta United versus New York Red Bulls. That's Saturday, March 8th at 7:30 p.m. in Mercedes-Benz Stadium. As always, be sure to check out our website, scarsandspikes.com, for news, opinions, analysis, and more. Check out our shop for hats, hoodies, mugs, tons of merch that makes you look really cool and supports your favorite Atlanta United coverage. Also, join the Patreon for $1.17 a month. Get to exclusive access to interview audio, bonus content, and also our world-class Discord. And yeah, that wraps up Across the Pitch. Bob, thank you so much for your time, man.
Thank you for having me. Appreciate it, guys. Thank you.